Hello, everyone. It's Kristi, and I am here with my co host, Kevin, for what we've decided to call Kristi and Kevin's. Actually, this is Kevin's suggestion, so props where they're due. Kristi and Kevin's Unhappy Hour. So, hello, unhappy co host, Kevin.
Hello, existentially dreading the downfall of her democratic nation, Kristi.
Yeah, just a little bit. I kind of thought, when I started saying things like I think democracy is under threat and Trump is a stress test of the institutions our founding fathers left us. Yeah, I no longer feel like that's conspiracy theory when I see former Republican campaign managers saying the same thing, and people who used to work, like in the CIA, also saying the same thing. So, but what we're really here to talk about tonight, and the democratic impact of this will be part of it, but is basically the fait accompli that Brett Kavanaugh will be appointed by the Republicans and one piece of crap Democrat to the Supreme Court in what will go down as, I think, probably, unless there are fireworks to come, the most contentious Supreme Court fight in American history. I hope we never have to go through anything like this again.
Yes, yeah. I dare say they probably will, though. They're just showing actually on the news now Chuck Grassley, who, if he were to be crushed by a piano, I would drink a cheer to that. Anyway, he's stood up.
Normally I hold you back, but tonight I don't feel like holding you back, Kevin.
Yeah, no, it's probably best. And I've had a couple of beverages. I'm not drunk, but I've had a couple, so I'm
You're a
loose.
bit merry, as they'd say.
Well, I don't think Mary's
I mean,
necessarily.
in the intoxicated,
Yeah,
not in the
yeah,
emotional. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. As an adjective, doesn't seem appropriate
right.
remotely to my current state. Anyway, yeah, yeah. So they're doing their thing in fucking Washington. Who cares? Fucking pricks. Yeah, this is awful, isn't it? I
Can
mean,
we
this really is.
just to bring, I think it was Grassley, because he was saying that they were asking if they were going to put more women on the Judiciary Committee, because I think the number of Republican women in history who have served on the Judiciary Committee, and people in the chat, you can Google this to fact check me. I'm not looking at the chat, so I won't know. But I think that number is zero.
Yes,
And
yes.
Chuck Grassley said, "Well, it's we unlike other committees, we have an executive committee every Thursday, and women just don't want to apply for that because they don't want to do. So basically, they don't want to do the work." Now, do you know who is the ranking Democratic member of the Judiciary Committee?
I believe it's the WOMS that goes by the name of Deanne Feinstein.
Correct. So apparently, it's only Republican women who are as lazy as shit.
Yeah, exactly. And well, we'll get into it, but Republican women have annoyed me enormously during all of
Oh
this as
yeah.
well.
Oh, white women. I'm sorry. If you vote Democrat, just like know right now, I am not talking to you. But if I go out, I go off on white women who vote Republican in this hangout. It is not going to be nice. I'm not going
Yeah,
to hold back. So
yeah. I think that's only fair, really. So yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's the timeline, isn't it? It's not quite happened yet, but it's um with the on it's the moment on the roller coaster just before the drop where it just stops for a second and
yeah, you just wait and you know it's going to happen.
but
Yeah.
the thing is there are no brakes on this one. You're just going to crash into the floor. Yay. um
Mm.
oh, and of course they're now showing Melania Trump in front of the Sphinx.
You
um
know what a reporter said? Who was following her on her African holiday? I guess we can call it.
I hope they said fuck you for enabling this, you piece of shit.
Well, no, but the reporter said that she was visiting baby elephants in some sort of, I don't know if it's sanctuary or wildlife area, and the reporter said she was laughing and smiling more in that sort of half-hour photo thing than he'd ever actually seen her genuinely be happy before.
Oh, I'm not surprised she's managed to escape the clutches of her rapist husband.
At the cost of the American taxpayers are footing the
Yeah,
bill.
yeah, of course, as they have been for a long time now.
Mm.
Yeah, and she could have stopped this. Really, it's not her.
No,
She isn't really at
no,
fault for this,
no,
but it,
no. I'm just sorry. I got to throw a flag on the play for that one. Melania Trump has, in terms of the Kavanaugh thing.
no, no, no. I mean, in terms
Oh,
of Trump ever being a viable presidential candidate, if she'd come out and just said, "Oh yeah, by the way, you know all that stuff about him being, this evil piece of shit." Yeah, well, I'm
well,
divorcing him because he's an evil piece of shit. But she's going along with it. She did the birther thing. Like I'm not one of these people who will sit by and be like, oh, she's a victim of all. No, she
Can
isn't.
I
I'm
can I
sorry.
just say something about Melania? She epitomizes the Republican white woman.
Yeah, and of course
She goes along with it.
the hypocrisy of the fact that she's a dirty foreigner as
Yeah.
well. But the foreigners do
Honestly,
go along.
the way she acts, she behaves a lot of white Republican women in America who vote against their own sort of our collective interest. One might say, like the improvement. They're putting women at the front lines so that they can enjoy some privilege
Yeah. Oh yeah,
inside,
absolutely.
in certain areas.
Well, exactly. Well, I forget who it was. Akila Hughes. We've mentioned on this channel before, in very different ways, of course, but she's certainly someone I very much admire. Um, Made a very good point that it was 51% of white women voted for Trump, whereas something like 5% of black women who voted for Trump, and that maybe America needs to listen to black women a little more.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I actually looked up this statistic the other day because someone was having a fight. And it was like 53% or 54% or 52%, one of these, of like sort of women overall. But when you break it down by ethnic background, it was 52 or 53% of white women voted for Trump, and 5% of African American women, and like 20% of Hispanic women or something. So
Mm.
yeah, I mean, it's white women who buoyed Trump. And well, I don't. Can we talk more about the vote and the actors in it before we get onto the politics? Because I think,
We can, but I just before we even get onto that, can I just? I've been trying to look for any silver linings in this, any tiny like. I mean, I'm not even just clutching at straws type shit, like crazy out there. And something obviously we've talked about in the past is annoying the far right. If we can do that, at least that's something. And with Kavanaugh getting appointed, the far right are up in arms. And you think, well, why? He's essentially their guy. Well, it's because it now continues the streak, which is the first streak ever in American history now, for about the past 10 years, I think it is, that there is not a white Anglo Saxon Protestant male on the Supreme Court.
sorry, I think I missed part of that.
Okay, sorry. Right, the far right are annoyed because there's no this appointment of Kavanaugh continues the streak. That is the first streak in American history where there is not a single white Anglo-Saxon Protestant male on the American Supreme
Oh, are
Court.
they all Catholics?
Well, we've got Kagan, Sotomayor, and Ginsburg are women, obviously,
Hmm.
so they don't count.
And then
Um,
Sotomayor is Catholic, probably, I would assume, because well, that's
y-
an inverse
yeah,
to this.
Sotomayor is Catholic, and
Yeah.
Ginsburg is at least nominally Jewish. But
Hmm.
I don't know what her particular religious background is. Oh, what her beliefs are. Anyway, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, Alito, and Roberts are Catholic. Breyer is Jewish, and Thomas, whilst being a Protestant male, is black. So
All right.
there isn't a single WASP male on the court. Which so again, I'm clutching at straws beyond belief there, but that is at least one tiny little silver lining that the fash are annoyed because I mean, obviously, for the vast majority of American history, it was only WASP
Right.
males that were on the court. So the fact that there are now none is the ultimate white genocide. And whilst I'm not here for most of the people on that court, I'm here for that one little silver lining.
Well, it's certainly the case that the Catholics are more extreme on views of contraception as well as birth control than the Protestants are.
Well,
So,
yeah, but I thought they'd been taken over by the cultural Marxists,
all
Kristi. I
right.
thought, oh
Who took over from
god,
they took over from the Illuminati. The cultural Marxist came in.
yeah, because
Um,
I mean, the cultural Marxists and the Illuminati are two completely different conspiracy theories.
well, basically, yeah.
They're not extensions of exactly the same fever dream at all. No, it's fine.
Well, I think we have to take a step back and look at. I mean, we're looking at this particular moment in time, this president, this presidency, the midterm elections. But if we step back, we'll see that the taking over the Supreme Court has been an open goal of Republicans for 40 years.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
they
absolutely.
this is why Mitch McConnell was willing to do everything to get Brett Kavanaugh over the goal line, even if it comes at the cost of losing the Senate and the House. It doesn't matter to him because he feels like what they're doing right now with flooding the courts with young, questionably experienced justices that agree with their worldview will allow them to, as I think is as obvious now to everyone, in combination with gerrymandering and voter suppression laws and other ways of disenfranchising people by under resourcing rural and poor voting um, polling places. What they want to do is establish implicitly a one party rule overseen by white rich men, so a sort of an oligarchy patriarchy that has the veneer of democratic legitimacy because people vote, but the elections themselves can never change power because they've rigged the system to such a degree that the only people who will ever really wield power are white men who are either rich themselves or beholden to other white rich men.
Yeah, yeah,
That's nakedly their goal.
or rich orange men as well. Um,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that's a rather astute piece of commentary. Um, yeah, the and it's so nakedly obvious that's what McConnell's been up to.
Mm-hmm.
The bullshit of him coming out and saying, "Oh well, this charade has gone on long enough," even though he literally openly stated that he would never allow. Um, what was his name? The guy that Obama tried to appoint.
Oh, Merrick Garland.
Merrick Garland. That seat was held open for 293 days before eventually, obviously, Gorsuch was appointed by Trump. Um, yeah, so and this has been open for like 110 days or something. Um, yeah, the naked hypocrisy of people like McConnell, and it's so obvious, like you say, that all they want to do is control this. And the reason they want to put in people like Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, who by Supreme Court standards are incredibly young, actually. Kavanaugh could be there for, in theory, 40 fucking years. I mean, that would be quite extreme, but it's certainly 25 to 30 years. It's rather a significant period of time. And obviously, they're going to be making mood music noises about, oh, well, he won't necessarily try and overturn Roe versus Wade. It's bollocks. They're trying to placate people. Once this is all settled down, the dust has settled on it, that's exactly what their first step will be.
And can I also just contrast? So, in the last week, people on the left have been focused on what I would say is the very unfair treatment of Dr. Ford because of her limited testimony and the fact that she was not allowed to present evidence, even though he was given a presumption of guilt. She was not allowed to actually try to do anything in any way to prove, to provide that kind of stuff. Um, and then also the unfairness of the FBI investigation, where the claims weren't thoroughly investigated and people were trying to come forward. They were volunteering to talk to the FBI and they were ignored. And then this ran through, Senate vote. Even though we haven't seen much of his documentation, there's questions about whether he lied. A living former justice has said he's not fit. Almost over 2,000 law professors from left to right have said he's not fit. And the implications that this will have on our democratic legitimacy of our institutions and our entire system going forward, that's what we've been fighting about this week. And you want to know what the intellectual dark web has been consumed with this week? They flooded journals from gender studies and other things with a bunch of fake articles. And they got some small, low impact journals that not a lot of people cite to pick up on them and publish them. And that's what they're focused on this week.
Yeah, they've got the big news covered there, haven't they? Yeah, this and this is the problem I've had with the intellectual dark web and the skeptics and all of those idiots. They've been so focused on fucking nonsense like Big Red or oh, the cultural Marxist, all this shit, and allowing far right idiocy to proliferate throughout their movements. And this is where you end up. It's disgusting.
They're literally fiddling while Rome burns. Oh my
Oh
gosh,
god, yeah.
look at this gender studies journal that like 4 libraries in the world subscribe to, one because it's based there. And, this is the stuff that they think is important. Flooding
Well,
journals with fake papers so that other academics waste their time. This is what
yeah,
they consider important work? Are you kidding me?
and of course one of the oh shit, hang on, sorry. Uh, I've something on my things now started playing and it's rather fucking loud.
Oh, well, I can't hear it if that helps at all. Just so you know.
Oh, there we go. Apologies. Um, yes. And one of the twats who was behind this, of course, works for a journal who have been scammed in similar ways themselves, which obviously makes it enormously hypocritical. Including by one a couple of years ago, where one of the sites that was sourced as one of the pieces of source material was a Flat Earth Society guide. So, I mean, their scientific credibility is zero anyway, regardless.
And
But
can also just say that what happens at the journal level doesn't always reflect what happens in the classroom level, especially not on the undergraduate level. You know, these kind of academic journals are read at very high levels and debated and disputed. These aren't things that are going to appear in a classroom, because a classroom is going to be worried about basic concepts and things that, you know, like you need 101 stuff. And these minor journals going off, this is not stuff that would come up. And so again, they try to broaden this out as an attack on all scholarship. Because they were shitty and tried to they faked a bunch of articles. But what they won't talk about, of course, in the same breath, are the number of people who've been exposed for faking data in the natural sciences. That wasn't a bunch of feminists wasting physicists' time with fake articles. These were people who were exposed as frauds within the discipline, right? So sometimes bad things get through, and then other people catch them, and then there's a debate and a discussion, and then we move on. And that's the point of academia. So the fact that they managed to get something published in a small journal, I can't think of a single, you know, like if we went to every single academic journal and look at their history, have they ever had to retract an article? I bet most have had to at some point, or had somebody put in something to refute that article later on and have it back and forth. So anyway,
yeah,
that
but
also fucking annoyed me.
yeah, well, exactly. I think it's a perfectly salient point. And you raise a good point there about the fact that it's an attack on academia in general. Because I mean, we've seen people like Jordan Peterson call for the outright defunding.
Yeah, he wanted to create a list of naughty academics that he could target.
Oh no, well, not just that, but he was saw a thing from him. We gave a speech recently where he literally called for the defunding of
Oh, that's right.
universities.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
what
make
kind of
universities compete.
yeah, what kind of academic does this?
The one
Well,
that doesn't want people to think critically.
yeah, an academic fraud, an intellectual fucking charlatan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, so that was a nice diversion away from
Well,
beating up on Peterson is a break from dealing with Brett Kavanaugh.
yeah, and well, what I wanted to do also as a diversion as such, to juxtapose, to try and bring one little ray of sunlight into the world within this topic, is the frankly smackdown, I would call it, of that discussion by the 2018 Nobel Peace Prize committee, and who they've put forward as the winners of that. Did you read about this at all, Christo?
Sorry, I had muted myself because I was doing a lot of clicking to get something set up, and I thought, anyway, please tell
Oh,
me more.
apologies.
It's
Yes,
all right.
apologies. Right. So obviously, while this whole cabinet thing has been going on, and this debate, I hate calling it that because it's not a debate. It's decency versus inhumanity. But anyway, the 2018 Nobel Prize winners, Nobel Peace Prize winners, have been announced this week, and it's two people who you probably might not have heard of necessarily, but are very relevant to this topic. A guy by the name of Dennis Mukwege, who is a Nigerian gynecological surgeon, and Nadia Murad, who's one of these Yazidi people who you may have heard of, who were targeted specifically by ISIS because
All
they're
right.
heretical Muslims. She was taken as a essentially a sex slave. She was raped multiple times and has been a human rights activist since. And they've both been doing. They've been mutually. They've shared the award for their fights against sexual violence, specifically also with sexual violence as a weapon of war as well.
Yeah, that's especially in the recent decades, become increasingly recognized as a horrible side effect of war that people sort of just, oh, you know, rape, pillage, and plunder. But culturally, and to a person and to entire communities, sexual violence against men and women and boys and girls is a deep, lasting scar if you read international development or other international relations literature. So that is well-deserved recognition for an issue that definitely needs some consciousness raising on.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's, like I say, whilst the debate is going in the wrong direction, specifically in America, on the world stage, something positive in this area has been given in recent times.
Well, I think the thing that's frustrating about the Brett Kavanaugh situation is that this is usually what happens. What
Yeah.
usually happens is that a woman is assaulted and then struggles with her own trauma and then has to struggle with her recovery and then has to decide whether or not to speak up. And in this case, obviously, it's extraordinary because she had to testify before the Senate, but whether it's in a workplace or if it's wherever else, um, women do have to make this decision. And, when they come forward, it's only been in the last, year and a half where we've actually started to see men not survive these charges and go on to live perfectly productive and happy lives and move beyond it.
Yeah.
Shermer in the atheist community, Carrier in the atheist community. These guys have weathered the credible accusations that were put to them. And so the sad thing was, we had a moment of hope. We had, and Samantha Bee had a great video where she was eating lots of cake to deal with.
Yes.
It was before Jeff Flake made his announcement about the FBI investigation. And she did say that it's always a mistake to put your hopes on Jeff Flake because he's like, Lucy with the football, and he's always going to let you down. And he did it again. He put out the request for the investigation, and even though the investigation wasn't thorough and it was shit and it was a cover up and it
Well, it was a total
damaged
cover. It was a total
the
cover up. You
reputation
can't.
of the FBI. They participated in. I mean, they couldn't help it, but Donald Trump is soiling and sullying the FBI by his politicization of it.
Yeah. Well, you can't really call it a proper investigation when neither the accuser or the accused is interviewed. That's not an investigation. That's a joke.
Kavanaugh was part of a decision that said that the FBI could use lie detectors as part of background checks because they're not criminal cases. There's no sort of constitutional rights in those situations. And I really wish they would have put him to a polygraph machine. I think that would have been such fitting justice. And I hope someday he'll actually experience that.
Well, hopefully. But hopefully he has a card runner or something as well. Or,
well, I don't know what the next steps are for any of the victims, but clearly if they've been denied what they think is a fair hearing and a fair process and a fair vote, in terms of like what was put out there for people to know and vote on. If people want to file charges, there's no statute of limitations on violent sexual assault in, I think it's Maryland. So we could see people filing charges, or at least filing a report that the police would then have to investigate.
Well, yes. Well, I hope that happens, but obviously it's up to the individuals whether they feel like they can go through that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If Blasey Ford wanted to just move to a remote desert island and never speak to another person again, I would get that.
Yeah.
I
would get that.
She's stepped forward, and I mean we discussed this. So obviously not all Americans, but she's stepped forward and put herself and her career and her credibility and all the rest of it on the line. Put her family through all of this as well, of course, and America has spat in her face.
Yeah, a majority of Republicans in a poll said even if he did it, put him on the court anyway.
Yeah.
And
imagine living in a country where you have to face up to the fact that, I mean, obviously it depends where you live and all the rest of it, but you're going to walk past people in the street every day that think that it doesn't matter if this man raped you or tried to rape you or whatever. I still think he should have the power to deny you basic health care as well. Like, I mean, that would, I don't even know where to begin with how unsettling at the very least that would be.
And when it comes to Republican women, I saw some data that was tracking hostile sexism, sort of like the typical patriarchal attitudes toward women's liberation. And since Trump's gotten in office, with Republican women, their hostile sexism towards other women has gone up, according to this poll, as an aggregate measure over time, like a 5-point scale or a 15-point scale or whatever it is. So I am so over you, middle suburban white women. I'm over you. Like, I think we should put our efforts into registering new voters, turning out new voters, going to communities, people who vote only in presidential years, getting our base out. But the media is going to throw out again and again, just like they do with white men, Oh, you need to win over all these racist men who are following Trump or admire Trump or independence leaning Trump. And I think we need to focus more on our core, because I think putting our hopes on white Republican voting women is a fool's errand, and they're not going to turn out for us. The most we can hope for is that they are so disgusted they stay at home, which is fine. Do that if that's how you want to express your non-support of Trump. Don't go and vote. But I think that chasing that dream or focus grouping those people, I think we have to look at it tactically, of course, seat by seat. But I think in a lot of places, it's a fool's errand, and we should put our resources and our faith in other people.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly correct. Yeah, sorry, I'm just watching the orange fucking Trumper-lumper piece of shit.
Yeah, and even okay. So can we bring up Susan Collins now?
Well, we can, but I just wanted to say before
Yeah,
we
go
moved
ahead.
on from that, the effect obviously on Dr. Ford and various other women who may want to come forward, when you see the Trump at his rally, literally mocking a sexual assault victim. I mean, the US has gone to a place I didn't like. Every time I think that America under Trump has bottomed out, there's new depths to plumb. And it's sickening because there's so much to love about America. I love a lot about American culture. Obviously, I'm a huge American sports fan. Uh, I've got a lot of American friends like yourself, Kristi. Um, but not you specifically, but you as in America, make it very difficult to love you at times. Very difficult.
Well, I would say in our defense that if you look at polling, more people believe Dr. Ford than Kavanaugh in the aggregate.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But as we discussed in the pre-show, um, with actually a different topic, but essentially the same thing. It's something of a Pyrrhic victory because ultimately it doesn't change anything.
Well, and also I mean, again, with probably in terms of where the electorate is, I think Kavanaugh has the lowest support of any justice ever. And they won, right? They got their big thing that they've always been looking for. So the question is, will they still be this motivated in 30 days' time to actually
Well,
turn out, or
yeah,
will they feel more? But getting back to Dr. Ford, I would hope that Dr. Ford sees the women and men who have come forward and put themselves, their time, sometimes their bodies on the line by doing civil disobedience, saying they believe her. I believe she's on the cover of Time magazine
yes, yeah,
this week. And I hope she sees that she's more than herself to a lot of people. She represents their struggles too, and their pain and their feelings of being put to the side, of being ignored, of being demeaned and being discredited,
yeah,
when they had the courage to come forward and talk about what is maybe the most painful thing that might have ever happened to them, the most humiliating thing, the darkest thing, the thing that they don't want to think about, and to come forward and talk about it and not have that kind of reaction. A lot of people, I think men and women and probably girls and boys too, can sympathize with that if they've had that experience or they know someone who's gone through that experience. So I think that, I mean, I have not witnessed this level of feminist activism in my lifetime. I can only think that this was a bit like what it would have been like during the 60s when women had their first sort of sexual revolution. But now we're not asking or demanding, I should say, we're not demanding autonomy over our bodies. We're demanding that our traumas and crimes committed against our persons mean something. They're not just obstacles for men to step over on their way to take seats of power.
yes. I think that's incredibly poignant point. Um, one one such example, and I'm not going to get too sportsy with it, but it is a sport connection. It's the reason I've heard about this case specifically, which does come from a woman who was inspired by Dr. Ford. Um, she, oh god, and this sounds terrible, but I've now forgotten her fucking name. I apologise profusely to but her and other sexual assault victims. She's come forward to accuse the soccer superstar, really, Ronaldo, who currently plays for Juventus in Italy, um, who's incredibly famous, has got a lifetime $767 million sponsorship deal from Nike. earns £500,000 a week playing football, all the rest of it, and she's accused him of rape in from 9 years ago in Las Vegas. And she was inspired by Dr. Ford to come forward about this, and it's clearly a credible case, because Ronaldo, who for footballing reasons would be the automatic first choice to be put on the list for the Portuguese national team, has been omitted from the squad for the Portuguese national team for the next 2 games, for no specific reason whatsoever.
Okay.
So clearly they know a little something and feel that he's damaged goods. Nike, the company who, like I say, have invested, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars
Hmm.
in this, have come out and I mean, they'll generally not make statements on such things because for legal reasons, it's like due process and all of that. They've come out and released a statement saying that they have significant, they're taking a significant seriousness to the claims that have been made, and they've gone into it being a very troubling case and all the rest of it. And the Nevada Police Department have opened an investigation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, obviously, none of those things individually or even collectively
Right.
prove guilt, but it seems to me that those who would know more than you or I about this are taking this very, very seriously.
Right. Which
Seems to me
is
like it's
what,
a very credible thing, and
yeah.
that, like I
And
say,
that's what victims want.
yeah,
Take it seriously.
yeah, exactly, yeah, absolutely, absolutely,
Investigate.
yeah, and that's so again something. This is where even though Americans might think, okay, well, this is obviously a very bad situation. Again, trying to look for silver linings. If women around the world, as is the case here, although obviously she's an American herself, um, if people around the world are seeing that this is having an impact and it's allowing a space in which victims, I can understand a lot of victims being put off just because of the horrificness of the way in which Ford and the various other accusers of Kavanaugh have been treated. If it allows a space where people who feel it's okay to come forward in those situations can do so in a way they wouldn't have before, then some good will have come of this. And indeed, if the authorities see that there's a huge groundswell of feeling about this, and you're going to get big protests and stuff, that they're going to take it more seriously and um, actually deal with it properly in a way they haven't done in the past, then some good will have come of this.
Yes. And I also want to credit, I know there's been a lot of women's voices. A lot of women have come forward because it's happened to them. It's also, I think, more common for women to come forward than men. So I want to include, men victims of sexual assault who, even though we talk a lot about women, but I also want to acknowledge men who have been allies in this. And we were talking about how you were sort of depressed. Can I show you something that actually gave me a whole lot of hope?
Yes, please do.
All right, so now I have to test my sound. So we're going to have to kind of fiddle around here a little bit, but I've got it set up for us. And this guy I found on Twitter, he's amazing. He made my day. Like in a day of a lot of bad news, he had some good takes for me. So I just want to play this video of him. He came out to stand with survivors and with women and victims. And later on, and if you want to see that video, I can show you, he was part of a group of men who were arrested for standing and disrupting traffic, but doing it for women or victims and survivors.
Yes, I saw that. I thought that was an incredibly honourable and rather brave thing because, as has been pointed out, if you're a white man and you do that, I mean, that's not saying that isn't brave, but you're far less likely to be treated harshly or shot dead or have your wallet be quote unquote mistaken for a gun or something. So, as a black man to do that, I think that's a phenomenally brave thing to do.
Mm-hmm. And also the men who were speaking and the men at the center of the protest, there were white men who were there too, but the people who spoke were black men. And again, I was just a lot of times because it's senators and people in the media, which is overrepresented with powerful, rich white men, you hear a lot of white men making excuses or white men talking about these issues. But in this case, it was black men leading on it. And that just It was good to see because I don't think that their voices in the media are represented like this. So I'm just going to go ahead and hopefully this won't blow everybody out with the sound. I hope I've judged it correctly, but I'm going to go ahead and play this, okay?
Yep.
Okay.
I came out here today because I thought it's imperative that men not only stand with women, but they stand for women. And by standing for women, we have to acknowledge that there's a culture of sexual violence, rape culture that men have benefited from. And in order for it to change, men have to change it. The same way we ask white people as black people to change white supremacy and stand up in the face of white supremacy, we have to call ourselves to that same duty when it comes to changing rape culture. You know.
Can I just point out here, this is intersectionality.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, that is the absolute core of it, yeah. And
Yeah.
also, I just wanted to point out, his hat says God's work, right? Now, obviously, we're both atheists, but I've no problem with your average Christian. But the point being here that you can be a Christian and a very devoted Christian and not a racist, rape apologist piece of shit. You can actually do it the good way.
Yeah. And again, because of the pastors who are put up there who are on Trump's side, that of course, his voice is not heard, but Franklin Graham's is.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the worst Christians are put forward. The people who Jesus would have despised, I'm quite sure. Well, assuming he existed and was anything like the biblical character, yes.
I think I saw some atheist, of course, because they would have plucked this out, tweet quoting a, of course, awful Christian evangelical pastor saying that we shouldn't stop Kavanaugh's nomination or confirmation because of the charges against him, because if you look in Deuteronomy, it takes 2 witnesses to level this sort of charge against a man. And you're just like,
yeah, well, that's the thing I've said for a while.
Hi, rape culture in the Bible.
Yeah.
Maybe we should leave that behind.
And of course, it's an eerie mirroring of what happens in Saudi Arabia. And I've said it for a long time. If they could get past the hatred of brown people, they'd love Saudi Arabia.
So can we continue with his?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Oh, wait. I gotta actually turn the sound up for you guys because again, I have external speakers and one in my ear. So I'm just gonna back it up a little bit and then go.
We all look at Kavanaugh and we see some similarities to things who've happened in our lives. At some point, we've traumatized some women in some way that we might not have acknowledged because it was normalized. You know, at some point a woman said no and you tried to pressure her into doing something because this was normal activity for us as men. We were supposed to score, quote unquote. And when you realize and you listen to these stories of these women, you realize that they've been damaged as a result of the things that we took as normalized. So that comes with accountability. It comes with accountability and saying, I might have done something that I might not have raped a woman, but I've done something that may have traumatized her as a man. And that's when manhood begins. We take accountability for our own faults. And so that's why I'm out here, mainly. And then when you look at Kavanaugh and understanding that mentality, if you can't come to terms with the fact that you may have harmed a woman indirectly, not on purpose, and be honest as a man, then you're not fit to sit on the Supreme Court. You know, so you can't represent us in the highest court in the land. So this is why I stand out here in solidarity with that woman. I've watched them protest, I've watched them march for us for years. You know, and I thought it was imperative that we come out here and do the same and show them how we honor them and how we love them and how we're willing to stand.
And that's how you be an ally.
It's a beautiful thing, yeah. Absolutely.
That refreshed my soul.
Yeah, that was very pleasant. Yeah. What else do we have? We've got is it worth playing the Lady Gaga clip?
We can if you want, or I've got the arrest, but of course they're chanting "Believe Survivors." You guys can see it on my timeline. Do you want to get a little levity with the Fox video?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm maxed out on seriousness now. I kind of, yeah, this was fun. And also when we watch this, bear in mind, I'm torn on this as to whether her carrying on, because I mean it's funny as fuck, but is it callous or just professionalism?
Who carrying on?
when we show the clip of
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. Well, I think that's a fair question.
like I can't decide whether it's like incredibly callous on her part or whether it's just she's being professional. He's fine. He's not dead or anything. He'll stand up in a second. It's just, but it's such brilliant and obviously unintentional comedic timing. The fact that she just doesn't miss a beat.
It is so callous, though. She does show absolutely no concern whatsoever. So, okay.
Yeah, she doesn't even seem to look at him. She just looks straight at the next camera shot.
Yeah, yeah.
And also the editor who doesn't like linger on the shot.
Okay, can we do this afterwards for people who haven't seen?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay. Yeah, because people who haven't seen this are like, what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly. All right. So this happened, and I think they're trying to do the whole beer thing with taking the piss out of Kavanaugh opponents or something. I don't know if that's the case, but I'm assuming that's the context.
Yeah, and they're celebrating the fact that the rapist is going to the Supreme Court. Yay!
Because actually, some protesters showed up at Mitch McConnell's house in D.C. About 15 or 20 people with beers and red cups, and they were singing drunken songs like "What do you do with a drunken justice in the morning?" and about hold up his confirmation or whatever, and doing chug 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 chug, and it was pretty funny.
Also, you missed out the word early, pronounced early. So
early in the morning.
Exactly.
Pirate, like a pirate. Okay, so I don't know if that was a reference to this too or not, but here we go. Prepare. Don't drink anything for the next 8 seconds. Oh shit. Sorry, gotta get the sound up. Okay.
And I'll take a quick selfie. You ready?
All right, ready?
Okay. Okay.
Right.
Smile. Do we have it? Wait,
Yeah,
the angle.
go the edge.
Wait, the angle.
Go the edge.
Oh.
The ACLU used to Kavanaugh. Well, they spent $1 million.
She doesn't even look at him. She just goes, "Okay, camera 2, that's fine," and just carries on. Doesn't miss a beat.
Oh, I laugh every time I watch it. Watching him slide off that chair is just like the best thing in the world.
It's so good. It's so well. It's obviously you've got the slapstick element of the fact that this guy is just totally full, and of course like these two middle-aged dickheads who go, "Oh, I'm going to take a selfie." Oh, fuck off! and then she's just like, "The ACLU used to blah blah blah."
Oh yeah, she's just totally Hunger Games about it. Like, screw you, man. I've got a show to get here.
Exactly. My name's in the fucking title of this. We're doing this. We're doing this properly.
We're doing it live.
Yeah. If you're going to bleed out, do it quietly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just a lack of any sort of empathy whatsoever.
Well, it's perfect. It's a perfect description of the way in which Fox News sees, victims of anything, even pratfalls.
Just step over them.
Yeah, exactly. He may be dead, but this show goes on. Fuck it.
Right.
So
and
we're now watching. Well, I say I'm now watching fucking Mitch McConnell do his thing, and I mean, is it terrible that I'm hoping God strikes him down?
Oh no!
Like literally,
like
I want
the safety
thunderbolt
caps are off for me tonight.
Yeah, I want a thunderbolt from Zeus to just cut the cunt in half. Frankly,
normally I'm all like, could this get us sued? But at this point, I'm just going to say all of this was just commentary.
Well, after yesterday's video where I called 4 men who technically haven't been convicted of rape, rapists, I don't care anymore. Sue me. I don't fucking care.
Let's have that conversation. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'll more than gladly accept a day in court with Donald Trump where I can call him a rapist to his fucking face. But obviously that's not going to happen.
Well, it's all about the deposition. That's what you really want to get in those cases. You want to get to the deposition. So.
Yeah. Oh, well, now we've got fucking homophobic pretend G.I. Joe action man, otherwise known as the vice president, doing his thing. Who's so straight that he's terrified of women as well.
And
he's so not in the closet. It's fine. It's fine. And he's not got even grey hair. It's white. Like it's sort of. I don't know. It must be the lights on it or something, but it's almost fucking like he's got tinfoil around his head. It's ridiculous. I don't know if you're watching the footage.
No. I'm running the show. I've got work to do here, Kevin. You get to fuck around and like play golf games in the background and watch sports.
I did that once because I wasn't asked to talk for 4 but
I know, but I'm gonna pull that card out of my hat for the rest of your life.
Well, fair enough. Fair enough then. Well, in order to spite you, I will instantly commit suicide then, so you can't hold it
No,
over
no.
me anymore.
No, I can't do these shows alone. I can't do these shows without you.
Oh, well,
It's too
bless you.
depressing otherwise.
You could, and you probably should most of the time, because
Mhm.
I'm just gonna do silly knob jokes and stuff.
Yeah. Also,
this-
it's been this is actually like this weekend. It's kind of hit me how much the stress of all of this, because it feels like it's been going on forever. Since it first emerged, it was leaked that
Yeah.
this allegation existed, and all of the twists and turns, and the moments of the ups and downs.
Well,
Yeah.
if you think it was only literally yesterday, I was thinking this. As I was putting that video together with the aforementioned 4 rapists thing, which is a weird way of promoting a video, but go and watch it nonetheless. It was literally only a week ago yesterday that the hearings happened with her and Kavanaugh in the Judiciary Committee, and it feels like that was months ago.
Right.
So much has happened. So much horrific shit. I mean, like I say, the president mocking her, even though he'd called her credible 2 days before. I mean, that's so Trump, it's untrue. All of that's happened, and it feels like it was so long ago, but yeah, it was literally 7 days. Well, now 8, and it's horrific. And that's the thing. It's difficult to pin Trump down to anything because you remember, right? The middle of this week, it was revealed that he'd stolen essentially $500 million from the American exchequer through dodgy tax shit.
He and his family.
Yeah, no one's even talking about that.
Well, the New York State Attorney's Office is looking into it, so we will hear about it again.
Well, that's good, but the fact that that's not even a part of the national discourse 3 days later, 4 or 5 days later, whatever, is horrific. But that's the thing. Trump is such a shitstorm. Is a hurricane of turds that it's difficult to keep track of anything. It constantly keeps you off balance.
Did you know that in German, der Shitstorm not only is a real word that they use in headlines on newspapers,
Good stuff.
but it's all one word. Shitstorm is a compound noun, which actually makes it look a little bit better, I think, than in English. Because in English, the shit is sort of describing the storm, whereas by making it a compound noun, it's a storm of shit.
Which is more accurate, yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because a shit space storm could just be a low quality storm, which is not what you're describing. What you're describing is literally a whirlwind of poo.
Of feces.
Yes, that is precisely what's taking place there.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's not hypothetically. What's the word I'm looking for? Oh, fuck. My brain's gone. I've totally lost it.
Back to the whole, it feels like it's been a month and a half. Yeah. So, and I think, there are probably a lot of people on the sidelines who aren't particularly invested, and there are those of us who are, people who are invested on different levels, on a personal level, on an empathetic level, and some that they know this happened to them, somebody that they're a partner with, they're watching them go through this. And I want to just sort of put out there that all of the frustration and sadness and all of that stuff is completely normal, and you should ask for a lot more hugs from friends than you normally would, or from your partner or whatever else. But also I can tell you from being in the politics game for a very long time is that eventually you get up, you dust yourself off, and you get back in the game. And it's not fair that we have to fight this fight after we've just been through, so many people have been through this emotional roller coaster. But, and don't push yourself if you can't do stuff, but if you want to find a way of doing something out of this, of transforming this for the future, then go and knock on doors, talk to people, get out the vote list in your, with your local Democratic candidates, and be calling people, register new voters, channel this into something productive, because 1, it will give you something to do with your energy, and 2, you're going to meet a lot of great people who think just like you, that you're not alone, that there are a lot of us out there. And if we all get to the polls and we bring our friends with us who agree with us, and our friends who agree with us are really lazy and need to get registered, if we all do that, we all reach out instead of just retreating, we reach out, then in November we can actually make the most important step we have to protect our democracy that has faced us since the Civil War. And I hate to feel like I'm using hyperbolic language. I am sounding the red alarm. November will determine the fate of our democracy. I'm not saying that if we lose in November, it's all is lost, but it's going to get harder every time we lose, because eventually the possibility of ever-changing governments won't exist anymore.
Yes, and I think that's a perfectly good point. To move the conversation on ever so slightly, to something we said we were going to discuss anyway, and which seems appropriate given that they're literally taking the vote now. We discussed earlier, obviously, Manchin, the Democrat piece of shit who seems likely to vote for.
Fuck Joe Manchin.
Indeed. But also we discussed, and I think there's a gender politics aspect to this, the hatred push towards Susan Collins. And by the way, in everything I'm about to say, I'm no way defending Susan Collins. She's a piece of garbage, and her political tombstone should be written on the back of her disgusting decision to back this rapist. But I think the anger pushed toward her specifically it's unjust in terms of it's disproportionate. She is by far not the reason that this is really happening. If she'd not stuck her head above the parapet at all and just gone along with it, then this hatred wouldn't be going her way. And I think the fact that she's a woman plays into that, because, for instance, Lindsey Graham has been so much worse on this. I mean, he really is. Oh God, I hope.
Oh yeah, he's been leading the charge even more than Grassley.
Yeah, if an anvil fell on his head, I would fucking masturbate over that. I think.
I think I would applaud you while you did it.
Well, please do. Yeah, I mean, ironically, you could give me a hand. Hey, there we go. You see what I've done there? Even when talking about death and I'm still doing cock jokes. It's all I've the only club in my bag. So there are so many men who deserve blame way above Susan Collins, and yet she's been made the focus of this rape culture. I'm not saying that women don't have a role to play within it, because obviously, as we discussed, white women voted, albeit a narrow majority, for Trump, and their internalized misogyny has gotten worse over Trump's presidency. But rape culture is not sustained by or imposed by women, and so to focus on women, I think, is in itself a reflection of sexism within society more widely.
Okay, can I remind you of something that I'd forgotten until I was reminded on the news?
No, you can't.
Well, I'm gonna anyway. Susan Collins went on television calling for Al Franken to be kicked out of the Senate because he was caught in a picture with his hands hovering over a woman's breasts. Fuck Susan Collins. Fuck Susan Collins. I don't care if she's a woman. I know what she's getting is because of hypocrisy, and because, and I mean, I understand. You're right. A lot of times women get a lot more heat than men do on these issues. And as a general principle, when it happens, I would agree. But in the case of Susan Collins, let me go off. All right. She ran as an independent, and one of the things she ran on was protecting Roe v. Wade. And she's also spoken up in favor of Me Too. And she also took the lead on getting Al Franken, speaking up against him in the Senate. But when it comes to her party, when push comes to shove, she's going to fall in line with the patriarchy and fuck us all over. So fuck Susan Collins, go to the crowdsource thing that's raising money for anybody who will run against her. They're at $3.1 million. I couldn't do it on PayPal, or I would have already donated, but on Monday, I'm going to get my credit card out, and I'm going to give 2020 to her opponent, because fuck Susan Collins. She gets no sympathy from me on the hypocrisy issue, and if she's getting extra heat because she's a woman, I think it's canceled out by her hypocrisy at this point. But that's just me.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm angry.
And like I say, my the caveat I started off with by saying I'm not defending her in the slightest.
Right.
Absolute fucking garbage. And when I mirror this, I will also be putting a link underneath to the crowdsource, the crowdfunding thing, which is a fantastic thing, by the way. I don't know if people are. Hang on, what's this? Protesters interrupted vote in the U.S. Senate on the Supreme Court. Oh, okay.
Good.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough.
Petitioning your government. It's civil disobedience.
Civil disobedience.
It's free speech. So people who want to yell at protesters and mock us, we're exercising our free speech, you free speech warriors. Either get on our side or shut the fuck up.
Quite so.
Sorry,
quite
I
so.
am really angry, as you can tell.
No,
I'm showing, like, a little bit of it.
I wouldn't. I would usually say something like, "Come on, Kristi, calm down a bit," because we're usually talking about just wank like Peterson or Sargon or something. But this
Yeah.
is actually very important, and I think your
Right.
anger is
Because
enormously
they are
justified.
fascists who are actually trying to delegitimize free speech while claiming to protect free speech. Fuck those guys.
Yeah. And so this crowdfunding thing was set up that if Susan Collins voted to not elect, sorry, to appoint Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court, then this would be activated. And they've raised just under 2 million as of yesterday, and it's now pushing toward 4 million, which is the overall goal, which will be donated to the campaign of whoever runs against her, the Democrat who runs against her.
Susan Rice sent out a kind of, I don't want to say flirty tweet, but basically a tweet saying, "Hey, you know, my family is from Maine," and
yeah, exactly.
and people are like, "Yes," and she's like, "Oh, wait, hold on, I gotta, you know, it's an idea, guys. I didn't realize everybody would be pushing me like within 30 seconds to say yes, I'll run against her." So.
Well, I hope that someone good like that is put up.
Black women will save us. Kamala Harris, Susan Rice. Come on, I mean, black women will save us. I am on board with that hashtag. Like,
true, but
I'm in the caboose. I'm like pulling white women on behind me.
True, but the problem is you've got to bear in mind this is Maine. This is like the whitest place in the fucking world.
Right, but I mean, Susan Collins has such name recognition. She held a very dignified position. She's always carried herself with grace. She's always.
You mean Susan Rice? Sorry.
I'm sorry. Susan Rice. My apologies. It's been late.
Susan Collins has not always.
No. Sorry. Rice. I'll just say Rice now. And she like I think she hovers a little bit over the ground when she walks. I mean, I think she'd be a fabulous candidate, and I think she would very easily win with this kind of momentum because of the attention and the hypocrisy.
Yeah,
of course,
very possibly. But I'm just saying, you shouldn't pander to racism or anything. But in a very, very white place, sometimes it might be a bit easier to just run a white person. I don't know. I'm just putting that out there. Don't shoot the messenger. In terms of like political strategy on that sort of level, I'm obviously an entire amateur.
I think tactically, but it would have to be someone of her caliber, and that would be more difficult to find within a month.
Yes,
and she's not even really. I mean, she hasn't formally announced or anything, but obviously there is a deep hunger for an alternative to a woman who chooses her party over her country, and not just the women in this country, but everyone in this country.
Yeah, well, indeed, yeah, and goes back on their principle because she knows full well that Kavanaugh will vote if given the opportunity, which assumingly he will, to scrap Roe versus Wade. Even though, like you say, she's at least nominally come out in support of it. And this is the thing: I don't give a fuck what your words are. You can claim to support X, Y, and Z. If your actions speak otherwise,
exactly,
I'm not going to take you seriously. I'm just not. Or so I'm sorry, I'm not going to take you with seriousness. Obviously, you have to be taken seriously. She's a senator and she needs to be deseated.
And that's also, can I bring that back to points? At this point, when Trump says anything, I don't even like. It's weird. I feel like somebody when I talk to people who live in dictatorships where you don't even really listen. I mean, you hear the politicians, but you just don't ever believe anything they say. And we've had this tradition, politicians lie, but nobody in American history has lied like Trump. And his followers will just go with whatever he says because it's a cult of personality. It's a cult of personality. And in a lot of ways, I mean, I don't know how long the guy's going to live, but in some ways, I'm wondering what the hell is going to happen.
Hopefully not very long, by the way.
When he gets out of office and he still has all his followers.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Where are those people going to go? They're not Republicans. And he's going to have opinions, and he's going to want to still be relevant. He's not going to be like other presidents who just sit down and shut the F up and let the other person get on with it. He's going to undermine whoever comes after him. And what are his followers going to do? And what is that going to do to our democracy? He is dangerous. This situation is dangerous.
Yeah, he's enormously dangerous. I mean, you see it every time when
they're highly armed.
Blatantly, well, indeed, but he blatantly lies with things like when he was laughed at the UN and came out and said, "Oh, well, I meant to do that." And his supporters believed it. What? So you meant to make international diplomats laugh at the idea that you were good at your job? That's not true, is it, Donald? You used one of your campaign lines, which gets huge cheers at your stupid rallies because it's full of your sycophantic fucking dotards. But yet, when it goes to actually intelligent people who know what they're talking about, They literally laughed at him. And this is the thing I would say to any Americans who want to know how you're viewed from the outside. George W. Bush was despised in the world. I mean, utterly, utterly despised. He was never laughed at the United Nations.
Trump is a buffoon. But again, to his followers and to Fox News, RT America.
Yeah.
It just doesn't matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I mean, when Barack Obama suggested talking to Kim Jong Un, no, Kim
It was
Jong
Un.
Un,
Wasn't it?
Il, basically the one who's now dead, who's the dad
Right.
of the one who's now there. Apologies, I don't mean to be Koreanophobic or whatever. Yeah, but their names sound quite similar. I apologize.
Don't be Ang Lee. You wouldn't like me when I'm Ang Lee.
Don't-
Your anti-Taiwanese bias.
Don't bring up Stuart Lee. I'm trying to be serious. Right. Yes, you've. Yeah. So when he suggested that, he suggested just talking to him, doing some diplomacy. That was Fox News went mad. Oh, he's supporting a dictator. Blah blah blah. And Donald Trump's literally come out and said that he's in love with him.
Had a love letter.
Had a love letter with him. Yeah. This is a brutal dictator who murders his own people, imprisons them for incredibly petty things.
And
Has
Trump
an
thought,
absolute-
thought that his media in North Korea said more nice things about him than Fox News said in the States.
Yeah. Yeah.
They really respect him in North Korea on the media. In the ratings, he's huge.
Interestingly, the votes have just come in, and it was 50 to 48.
So was it two abstentions or absences or what?
Well, I don't quite know because obviously I don't have the volume on, but it's literally just come up on the screen, 50 to 48.
Well, I know
So-
one of the Republican senators had a wedding. He was walking his daughter down the aisle today.
Oh, okay.
So he might not have been able to attend. And then I can't think of a second senator who wouldn't vote. Can you?
Well, Markowski voted against the
Right.
procedural motion. So let's
Mhm.
say she was an abstention rather than voting against, for whatever reason. Who else? I don't know. Did Manchin go back on his word? I don't know, but that would make it 49. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see in the wash. It doesn't really matter. 50 scumbags have voted to have a rapist on the Supreme Court. Another rapist. on the
Credibly
Supreme-
accused.
No, well, no. Like I say, if you want to take me to court, please do. I would happily take the publicity. That would be amazing, and B, the opportunity to call you a rapist to your fucking face. But obviously, that's not going to happen. So I know I'm absolutely free on that one. He's not going to sue us.
Probably not. No, you're right. I'm just scrolling through the Washington Post alert on it, but they haven't been giving out any
Yeah, well,
names that I can see.
It's literally just happened, so it's understandable that would take.
Okay, we'd have to be on C-SPAN, and I am not on C-SPAN.
Well, I am on. Well, I'm on. It's a live feed from the thing, but it hasn't. Like the actual names haven't come through yet.
Okay.
Because they've literally just announced it. So, but it basically doesn't even really matter. There's a majority of the people who sit in the highest elected body of the legislature are scum.
Well, I think going forward again, because this is now done. So I've been kind of I took a British approach. I took being an England fan in the World Cup approach to this, which is I actually had decided it was a done deal back before the FBI investigation was started, and then I stupidly got hope that maybe Jeff Flake would do the right thing, and that the senators who claimed to be independents and who said they wanted the investigation would. I think now they're just covering their ass, obviously, but that gave me hope. And then when everybody announced their votes, I guess I've been processing since I got up this morning. So I am planning on channeling it by, like I said, I'm going back to Wisconsin. I'm going to be doing whatever the local people say needs to be done, go up wherever we need to be, driving up in the Fox Valley, spending my Saturdays and Sundays, spending weekdays, talking to people, dropping lit, and then getting people to the polls, getting voters out early, myself doing my absentee vote. Even though I'm going to be there, I still reside in Germany, so I have to vote absentee, so I'll vote while I'm there. I'm going to channel all of this into something productive. And also, I want to say, can I say the other thing? Can I do my guilty pleasure?
Please do.
Because I needed to do something to get my mind off of this, and watching television wasn't enough because I could still think. So what I've been doing most of today is learning the really, really fast section of Rap God by Eminem. And
All I can say is stop white people 2018.
And because I have to learn the words and I have to, repeat it, and I have to go faster and faster and faster, I become completely absorbed. And then when I do well, I feel good about myself. So that's been my therapy. And whether you're practicing an instrument or doing something you love, I think finding a mental escape is really, really important. A completely absorbing mental escape. I know people laugh at art therapy and coloring therapy, but in all honesty, if you start coloring something and just lose yourself in it, it can be really, really relaxing.
I think that's a really disgusting approach that some people take when they mock certain types of therapy that don't harm anyone else, obviously. Because ultimately, if it's an outlet for you, that's fine. Like, I mean, I understand that people despise, or not necessarily despise, but don't like sport. But that's my outlet, right? And if someone else's outlet is colouring or yoga or speed rapping,
yodeling,
speed rapping in Germany, as well. Just, I don't know why, but just the fact that you're in Germany makes that even weirder in my mind. I don't know why.
I need to introduce you to Seed.
Well, that's what she said. I don't know. God, that. Oh no!
But it's all good.
I'm so glad my parents don't listen to this.
Me too.
You don't even know my parents. Why?
I'm glad my parents don't listen to this.
Yeah. Well, indeed.
My dad wouldn't care about my swearing, but my mother would be very disapproving.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, they wouldn't care so much about the swearing because I swear around them. But it's the knob jokes.
But anyway, we're getting back to how therapy is valid if it hurts nobody, doesn't hurt the person.
Exactly. So I don't care what your thing happens to be like. So I know someone who writes furry fanfic porn thing, and you think, okay, that's weird. I don't understand it, but if that's their outlet, fine. They're not hurting anyone. So I don't know why. Like you say, some people do mock coloring therapy and stuff, but if it helps someone, that's brilliant, fantastic. And actually, I mean, it's to widen the discussion, I suppose, to a slightly more contentious level.
Oh, but can I finish my point first?
Oh yeah, please.
First,
yeah, absolutely.
Which is, one, you do you, boo. I mean, what works for you. And second, just in case people were curious, I can blow through 80% speed, no problem, and definitely blow through 90% speed. I've almost got 100% speed, and now I'm working on 110, 120% speed in order to get my lyrical dexterity a bit finer.
Kristi.
Yeah.
Don't talk the talk, walk the walk.
Well, I've got a hangout coming up tomorrow in Hamilton, where I'm going to be joined by Culture Shots and Steve Shives, and we're going to talk about Hamilton politics, rap, representation, and art. So maybe I will bust out my lyrical ability on that show.
Kristi, just drop a few bars for us. Come on.
All right. I won't go very fast.
That's what she said.
All right, hold on. Let me wet my mouth a second.
That's what she said.
No, normally I do with the lyrics up, so.
God. Go on.
Summa lama dama lama, you assuming I'm a human, what I gotta do to prove to you that I'm superhuman? So I don't have the lyrics in front of me, so I'm used to practicing it with the lyrics, but it's along those lines, but like that, but faster and more.
Well, yes. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have the lyrics memorized yet. It's the way I've learned to use it. I have to look at the words, and it's also weird. I have to sort of shake my hands in time with the beat and sort of orchestrate it with my fingers. It's kind of weird, but that's how I do it. That's just how I get it right.
Absolutely. Well, on a point of song lyrics and stuff, I've just finished the script for, as I mentioned briefly in an episode recently, I'm going to do a toxic masculinity in pop music series.
Yeah.
So I just finished the script of the first episode of that.
What can you give us a little preview about the top, like the song and how long it will be?
Well, in terms of how long it'll be, I'm not entirely sure. There's a lot of it, but I'm not sure how long it's going to last necessarily because there are also clips. Indeed. there are clips of the song like interspersed and stuff. So yeah, but I don't know how long the actual thing will be. But it'll be like a video essay type type thing. Yeah, and it's on "When You're in Love with a Beautiful Woman" by
Oh, right.
Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show, which is a story of a paranoid fucking asshole who doesn't just not actually he isn't happy in the situation of being in love with this beautiful woman, but sees it as an incredible burden and sees everyone around him as a threat. It's an incredibly toxic psychological outlook. Even though on the face of it, it's a beautiful song. It's like a light, airy, upbeat disco tune from the late 70s. But when you actually look at the lyrics, they're awful. They're really bad.
Right.
Even by the usual, like someone said, they've been putting together a master list of love songs that aren't creepy, and they've so far come up with 8. Yeah, love songs are problematic. So that's the first one, and I'll be filming that and putting it together. I was hoping to do it this weekend, but football and baseball and things have gotten in the way. So that'll happen at some point. Yeah, but it's I'm quite happy with how it's come together. The script, it's quite it'll be something of a departure from me. It's much more sober. Although there is also, bizarrely, I still couldn't get away from it, and I mentioned this in the script. There is also an erection.
I'm sorry, what?
There is an erection allusion within it, because the very first line is,
okay.
"When you're in love with a beautiful woman, it's hard," which is clearly an allusion to erection, but is also an allusion to like a difficult emotional place.
I have to say that maybe you have to have a penis to get that one, because I've never had that double meaning. That never occurred to me.
Oh, I assure you that it is. I mean, the man who wrote the song admitted to it, and
Right.
Dennis Lecarrier, the lead singer, said he always felt that was the only meaning of it in that sense, which is clearly wrong, because "it's hard" is also a reference to the situation rather than to just his erection.
Right. Well, I heard that song when I was growing up, where I didn't have a framework for it, and I think I've just carried that naivete through my life with me.
No, that's fine. That's
Essentially.
actually good to have like a female perspective on that, because that's
Well, at least a little. I mean, I was, probably under the age of 10. I mean, I know, what year did that song come out?
1978.
Oh gosh, so yeah, I was like 6 years old when it came out.
That's fair enough.
So yeah, I would have had a very clean take on all of that.
Yeah.
As it was played repeatedly on Top 40 radio, which is the only radio I grew up with. So
Did you listen to the song "Smack My Bitch Up" and think, why is this song about dog abuse? What's happening here? Right.
no. Although I have heard that reference can be to, like, when you're mixing music.
Yes, I believe so.
Right. So yeah, it might be another double meaning. But I also wanted to say that if you ever are interested and want to have a guest appearance on your on music and toxic masculinity, as I got caught up in that beef, because I was watching reaction channels, and then I got caught up in the drama of the Eminem MGK beef, and was watching more videos, and find a lot of channels that I really like and enjoy.
Yeah.
But I've also become I've watched more of Eminem's music and his performances, and I have to say, I struggle deeply with him as an artist, because I'm a feminist, and he's got a lot of homophobia. I mean, doesn't have racism, so hey, yay!
Yay.
Especially like, whoa, that's one thing I can not have to worry about. But I struggle with admiring his lyrical ability, but then also the content, what he does with his talent, I disappoints me sometimes. But I'm also I'm realizing that a lot of his work was therapy for him, and the ways in which he was hurt and unable to express himself as a young man ended up coming out in these sort of, these more Slim Shady character narratives that can be quite violent and misogynistic. And to me, that was sort of seeing more about him makes me realize the extent to which his art, it isn't defined by toxic masculinity, but it is interwoven with it, and understanding it from a psychological perspective. Actually, his work is an interesting insight into toxic masculinity. And so if you ever wanted to talk about that, I could.
Well, what I would do, actually, because I think you have a much better grasp on this, although what I will say is, with a song like the way I am, I think is a good case study in the thing you're talking about there. But I will leave it absolutely up to you. If that you made your own episode completely, and I would happily add it
Oh,
into the series and all the rest
okay.
of it, and it would be like a kind of a guest
Oh,
episode or whatever, because
okay.
you clearly have a better grasp on that.
Right.
Because I mean, technically, it's not really even. I mean, it's sort of is pop music in the sense that it's popular, but it's obviously its own genre, and you have a much better grasp on this.
Right. And he works with a lot of pop artists, so there's a lot of crossover.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would be excited to do that.
Yeah, please, but by all means, whenever. Obviously, there's no rush or anything. Whenever you could do that, that would be. I'd love to have that.
I appreciate the
perspective.
92 people who are sitting listening to us basically organize our video schedules. So,
I appreciate them, but I'm also deeply skeptical as to their emotional well-being. You should be doing something much better with your Friday nights. Go out, take copious amounts of illicit substances, and fuck like crazy.
2 votes.
2 votes. Exactly. Well, that's unanimous then.
Yeah.
You've been ordered
by the general.
Yeah, exactly. You don't disobey the orders of the general.
Yeah, so go and model yourself off of Dionysus. I think is eat, drink, and be merry for tomorrow. And they're going to confirm today they've confirmed an incredibly accused rapist, or attempted rapist, I should say.
No, he's a rapist. I'm just going to go with it.
Well, certainly. I mean, well, I guess, yeah, we haven't even talked about the whole other people who brought forward allegations that have not been taken seriously or investigated seriously.
Yeah, well, actually, I mean, it came forward today, a text message conversation between 2 former friends of his who had said that he had contacted them saying, "Don't say anything bad about me."
Right, that was about the Ramirez case.
Yeah.
And then he testified under oath before the Senate that he had only learned about the story like right when it was coming out, when we have evidence that he was organizing people to discredit it while it was being researched.
Yeah, so another instance of perjury.
Yep.
One of the growing list of perjury instances.
So I watched, I know we're going a little bit long, but fuck it. Before we came on air, I watched a video by a guy, something like the law point of view or the right law point of view or something, like from a lawyer's perspective or whatever. And he was talking about the Kavanaugh case, and he wanted to look at 5 things. The first one was perjury, and then he had 4 other points. But he said something that kind of just like set off alarm bells in my head, which is, so he's sitting there, he's this white guy who's got a law degree, looking, very credible, very believable. And he says, before I start discussing this first point on perjury, I want to say that I'm not going to let my opinions come into this at all. I'm just going to be looking at this from the perspective of a lawyer. And I was like, dude, you're not just a lawyer. You're a white guy lawyer who went to a specific kind of school and has a certain perspective on the law. But you want to divorce yourself of all of those identities and just say, I am a neutral voice representing what any reasonable lawyer would think. And maybe you should I'm hypersensitive about white male privilege right now. But, if a black woman said that and then went on to say things and give her assessment of the legal strengths and weaknesses of a perjury case, critics would immediately leap on her identity.
Yeah.
They would never give her a pass and just say she's just speaking as a neutral lawyer. They would always frame it in terms of her identity. And then they yell at us about identity politics. But this guy gets to get up there and go, I'm just a lawyer. And other than that, I'm a vacuous thing. I'm just transparent. There's nothing else about me that would influence the way I'm interpreting this.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not mathematics,
Yeah, exactly. I think the ultimate example of that would be I think the juxtaposition between the way not Kristi Winters, Jesus Christ, Serena Williams.
Oh, well, you're going to compare me to someone. I am not worthy of that comparison for sure.
Well, you're both bodacious. I think I can say that. I don't know that your forehand smash is quite as powerful.
Yeah. But I don't know if you're ready for this jelly.
Your milkshake brings certainly this boy to the yard. Anyways,
like it's better than yours.
Well, again, all I can say after this little back and forth is stop white people 2018. Definitely. The way in which a sportsman or a sports star, and she is the greatest female tennis player of all time, without doubt, who the temperament of which is irrelevant. You're literally just a sports person, right? Your temperament really isn't in question, but yet she was jumped upon as this barbarous individual. How dare she? She shouted. Oh no, she got emotional. Whereas a man whose temperament really does matter because it's part of the fucking job is allowed to scream and shout and pile on conspiracy bullshit about the Clintons and so on.
Now, are you talking
and that's
about Lindsey
fine.
Graham or Brett Kavanaugh?
Well, specifically about Brett Kavanaugh, but Lindsey Graham very much falls into that. But he's already sort of elected to his position, so that's.
But he's still embarrassing his job.
Oh God, yeah. Although what's more, not just embarrassing, obviously that Trump tweeted out that anti-Semitic shit, but that his lawyer, the former mayor of New York City, Rudolph Giuliani, retweeted a tweet from someone who said that Soros should have all of his assets frozen and be arrested by the American state. That's fascism.
It is. Yes, yeah.
I disagree with this person, so he needs to be imprisoned.
Oh, and also Chuck Grassley, I think it was, asked if he thought that Soros was behind the protesters, and he said, some people believe that. I believe that. I believe it was Grassley. Correct me in the chat or in the comments if I'm wrong. Yeah. But yeah, this whole sort of Jewish conspiracy that these women who are coming forward are lying about their experiences. That's what these guys are saying.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not just they're lying, but they're lying on behalf of the evil, scheming Jew.
Yeah. That people are being arrested in civil disobedience because they're being paid to lie about sexual assaults.
And all of this, bear in mind, is from the same people who a few weeks ago were going on about where's all the decorum within civil discourse? What happened there? Why aren't you treating us fairly and decently and humanely? You're literally saying these women are lying on behalf of the evil, scheming Jew.
And that brings me back to a point that I wanted to make, but then we kept talking and I forgot about it, which is this presumption of innocence, right? And that's what I hear a lot, even though this was a job interview, right? People were saying that Brett Kavanaugh was entitled to a presumption of innocence. Can we please establish that when someone comes forward with an accusation, that we give them a presumption of honesty? That if the person is entitled to be presumed innocent until proven guilty, then the person who's making the accusation should be assumed to be honest until proven otherwise. Yeah, can we change the goalpost here? Make it equal for both people.
Well, exactly, because obviously lying about that is in itself a crime.
Exactly.
So surely that would fall under exactly the same fucking paradigm.
She met a higher bar than he did first.
She needs to be presumed innocent of lying about making a false allegation to police, which is a crime.
Well, in this case, a false statement to the Senate while sworn under oath, because she hasn't. I mean, who are we talking about? Yes. Ford? Yeah, she hasn't filed a report yet.
Okay. Right. Technically. Okay, but it would certainly fall under all kinds of libel and slander, which again, she has to be assumed innocent until proven otherwise, which she fucking hasn't, because any possibility of that outcome is impossible because of the fact that imagine that. Imagine having what is being considered like, it's a proper investigation, and yet neither the accuser or the accused is interviewed by the police. That's right. That's
exactly
ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous.
That's a rigged process, and he still barely made it.
Yeah, that isn't even like a kangaroo court scenario. That's nothing. You might as well have just not bothered. Well, the reason they went with the show thing, because obviously then they can say, "Oh, look, we did an investigation." It's a joke. It's a farce.
Yeah, and when someone goes, "Okay, this person is entitled to a presumption of innocence," and then they're proven guilty, people just go, "Oh, well, I was wrong." But when a woman comes forward and she's honest, and you're accusing her of lying, she's got nowhere to go from there. And why not just say the same thing? Like, if you take her story, say, okay, I don't know if assume that she's being honest. Don't assume she's lying, and then wait to see. And then if she wasn't, because, a very small percentage of the single-digit percentage of some allegations are false. But if that's the case, then just have the same, well, I was wrong. But it seems like there's more weight put on the people making the accusations and the people being found guilty in terms of what people who are giving out these presumptions feel afterwards. So, yes, especially when you weigh it up, and as you pointed out, she had a lot more to lose and then then to gain and from lying, whereas he has a lot to gain from lying and a lot to lose. When you weigh up their stakes in it and all of it, who is more credible to you? That's the real question here. And if you think she's credible, then you have to go with the logic of that assumption and say, we have to, if she's credible, then this happened. And if he is not admitting it and he's not owning it, or he is, just being belligerent or trying to cover up, or then no, this is not the kind of character of a person we want on the bench. But of course, I forget that Republicans have a political goal of one party rule. So none of that matters.
Yes, absolutely.
Sorry.
And just a quick note to the MRA fuckwads who go on about how accusations ruin men's lives. Yeah, well, please do tell me that how that's the case when the rapist president of America has just had his nomination, who was himself a rapist judge, to sit alongside Clarence Thomas, another rapist judge, on the highest court in the land. Please do tell me how rape accusations ruin these men's lives.
Yeah. A man who raped his way through the 70s, 80s, 90s,
And
2000s.
beat the shit out of her. Beat the living shit out of her. Yeah.
And, Bill Cosby gets convicted of one crime after getting away with it for decades and spends, twilight years in prison instead of the decades that he should have spent for the crimes he committed. So even when guys get away with it, or when there's, some sort of justice, then it doesn't really feel like justice. Maybe because only one crime can be convicted because the rest, like with the serial priests and their abuse and the statute of limitations, or they're convicted and then they get a 6-month jail sentence.
Yeah. Or sometimes they don't even get a jail sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
But I think I have to reframe it's difficult. I don't want to have to do this, but I feel like I need to reframe myself. Not with all. Okay, so this is also another thing I wanted to say, right? The Republican identification, the number of people who identify as Republicans has dwindled because independent-leaning Republicans and Republicans who can't stomach Trump have been driven out of the party. But there is now I forgot what I was going to say because I started doing all my political science stuff. Damn it! I hate when I do that.
You were going to reframe something.
Nah.
Were you going to do a not all Republicans bit?
Well, I guess it's 10:30. It's been a very exhausting day. I went down a rabbit hole of political science, and then I couldn't remember which fork in the road I wanted to take. So,
well, that is an incredibly tortured amount of metaphors you were using there.
That's what happens in my brain.
There were rabbit holes and forks in the road, and
that is my brain. A series of mixed metaphors.
I'm not entirely sure what you were talking about, but
it's Alice in Wonderland down there.
Exactly. It was like a fucking psychedelic fucking lyrics situation or something. It was like Maharaja fucking Beatles or something. It was madness.
Yeah, I think this rum I've been sipping is definitely kicked in.
Fair enough.
Yeah, good stuff. So
and on that rum shell.
Nice. Very nice. This has been actually pretty therapeutic. Thanks, Kevin.
I'm glad we did this because I was when asking you if you wanted to do this, I was sort of wary because I didn't want to. I was sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place. I didn't want to feel like I was being paternalistic and being like, "Oh, you don't have to stress yourself, your little girly brain." But I also didn't want to push you into talking about something that might be difficult for you or whatever. So I was sort of like, "Oh shit." But this is the sort of thing we talk about. So
no, yeah, and I really when I appreciated it, you checking in, because it just made me like, oh, he's aware, like he's checking in to make sure I'm okay. And I watched the video we watched earlier of the guy talking about how men have to stand up and look at the ways that they've inadvertently, perhaps not consciously, but even because of normalization, not realized they've hurt women when they have, and owning that and understanding the culture that allowed them to think that and why it's wrong, and then want to actively change the culture so other men don't make the mistake and they never think like that again. Yeah. And also that tie-in with linking the moral ownership of social change. He said, when Black people ask white people to stand up to white supremacy, and when we ask white people to do their part to change the culture that is oppressing and hurting them, then we as men have to do the same thing. I lost it. I was crying. I was, and I guess it was good tears, but it came from a very, wounded place and also an appreciative place. So it was a very mixed series of emotions.
Well,
And
I feel like there's a huge segment of America, which, I mean, they might not literally be crying, but America as a nation is sort of, there's a part of it that.
oh, you dropped out for a second, Kevin.
Future, but also it is sort of cathartic. I think a lot of women have gone through all of this over the, and indeed men. I mean, Terry Crews, for instance, was part of the Me Too thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people have. It's opened wounds that in some cases might be healthy, and very possibly in some cases won't be, but that possibly needed to be done.
Yeah, and I think that's why I admire the women, all of people who come out and speak about their trauma. The other time I cried over this was when I watched the video of the women talking to Jeff Flake.
Yeah.
And I lost it then too. And that was, it was seeing their pain and also then just having it hit me how many people had to come forward, or how many people did come forward sharing that pain with their representatives just to get acknowledged. That's what they had to do. They had to relive in their minds their trauma in order to just try to get the attention of their representatives and people like Ted Cruz saying things like, you should go talk to the police.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's by comparison to, was it Grassley? Someone like that, who just shouted, grow up.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. I mean, again, if a truck plows into him, I'm not going to fucking lose any sleep.
No. Like I said, no safety caps. I'm just going to agree with you this time.
But I mean, when this inevitably gets demonetized, I'm not even going to bother contesting it.
No.
Yeah.
But the thing is, for those women reliving their trauma in that public forum, making their trauma part of their protests, they were then seen by other women and men and boys and girls who recognize that pain and acknowledge it, and they find courage in their speaking out, and not just speaking up and saying this happened to me, but saying it to their representative. And that, I think, is it's an inspiring role model, and it shows people who might not have ever shared their stories that, one, they're not alone, which they know, but two, a lot of women were saying, I've never told anyone this, and it happened to me 20 years ago, or it happened to me 10 years ago. And for those victims who can't speak to it, to see, if it takes me 20 years, that's okay. But maybe someday I can talk about this too. I have a role model now. I'm sorry if I can just finish my point.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been so heart-wrenching for people who have been tuned in and care about this. And I've been talking a lot about it from our side, not from the Brett Kavanaugh side. So I want to just also acknowledge that. But I'm hoping that this pain that the nation has been bearing witness to and bearing as witnesses to their own experiences will form a new foundation for us going forward, that we have now reset what it means to talk about sexual assault, sexual harassment, sexual abuse in America, that Me Too is not a fad, that Me Too is now a permanent shift in our culture. And even though we might lose at the court, if we're winning in the court of public opinion, then eventually, if we have a democratic process, that will be reflected in the court's decisions. So, we have to keep fighting.
Absolutely. And I think, like you say, examples of the bravery of people like Miss Blasey Ford and others. And the Ronaldo accuser, whose name is Catherine Mayorga, I should have remembered that. The bravery of those people is astonishing. And the fact that they come out, one of the victim blaming pieces of shit people use is that, they come forward so many years later. Well, yeah, sometimes it takes decades to even come to terms with what's happened to you.
And that's what we're finding with the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
exactly the same process of trauma. So we know now in psychology that, and this is this as a victim, the first thing they have to do is survive, first the attack, and then processing the trauma afterwards. And so, yeah, understanding that people then go through this trauma if they're humiliated, embarrassed, if they were 15 years old at a party with boys and they were drinking alcohol with no adults around, they're worried they're going to get in trouble. They push it down, they don't think about it, which is why you don't remember every little detail. You just remember the ones that scared you the most or hurt you the most. And those are the ones that you can't forget. That's why they stick with you. And we're learning now that these traumas that people have to process through them, and of course, a lot of times they don't have access to mental health services because they haven't told anyone because they're ashamed, and then it takes a lifetime before they realize that what happened to them wasn't their fault. What happened to them was not under their control, that they weren't bad, they're not to blame, and they can now, that person that was wounded, they actually can sort of see that child and have sympathy and realize how they can see it from a different point of view because they've lived long enough to see the world. And when it happens at a very young age, I think that we understand now why we need to extend the statute of limitations and why we need to incorporate more of the science and psychology about memory and processing emotional stuff and bring that up so that people don't hold Dr. Ford to some ridiculous standard like knowing exactly what day of the week the party happened on. And that's not something that she was having nightmares about, So
Yeah.
sorry, I'm kind of drifting now.
The mistake she made was not faking calendars from 36 years ago that they definitely wouldn't have kept ridiculous. I mean,
I
the fact
don't
that they
question the credibility. I just think because they actually condemn him, they don't exonerate him because he wrote down the party she described.
Well, I think they're bollocks. I think they're total bollocks. If he's lost so many documents that he can only reveal 8% of it and stuff.
That's only when he was a Republican operative, Kevin.
Well, yeah, of course, but the idea that you would have kept that over that length of time, no, I don't buy that. I don't buy, and I don't. He's lost any benefit of the doubt because we know he's a lying piece of shit who's lied under oath. God knows how many times now. So fuck him. He's lost any benefit of the doubt he might have gotten.
Oh yeah, I mean fuck Brett Kavanaugh.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were going to end on a rumshell, but then we got going on another tangent. So.
Well, exactly. Let's end on something funny. A silly pun.
Okay, or I could play the fox guy falling off his chair again.
Well, I'll do my pun and then you can do that as well. Fuck it.
Okay.
But it's popped into my head. I used to have a career in archaeology, but it ended in ruins.
Someone's been watching Time Team.
Well, yeah, that could be said regardless any day of the week.
That's true.
I've been watching fucking Time Team.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go.
Especially today, I was watching the one where he was going about they were excavating Henry VIII's palace and going on about nonsuch and all the rest of it. Yeah. It was an enormous amount of fun. I enjoyed it. Yeah, brilliant. Anyway,
I love Time Team.
Time Team's amazing.
It's an adventure.
Time Team represent, yo.
Hashtag Stop White People 2018.
Exactly.
All right, so here's, as Jon Stewart used to say, your moment of zen.
I'll take a quick selfie. You ready?
All right, ready?
Okay.
Okay. Smile.
Do we have it? Wait,
Yeah, go the edge.
Wait, the angle.
Go the edge.
Doesn't miss a beat. Doesn't miss a. I mean, she might talk shit, but she knows the ins and outs of the job.
That was great. All right, I hope you enjoyed that, you guys. I've been Kristi. You guys in the chat have been awesome, even though we entirely ignored you. Kevin has been off the rails or off the hook, or I don't know, but it's been a good show, and I thank you. So goodbye from me, and goodbye from Kevin. Goodbye, and say goodbye, Heaven Kevin.
Goodbye, Heaven Kevin.
Bye, you guys.
Bye-bye.